Hey, what's up, Steelers Nation? I'm your host, Tyler Feldman of the Steelers Squad Show. Proudly born and raised in Pittsburgh, currently loving life and repping the black and gold in Austin, Texas. And can I get a double oi? What is going on in Pittsburgh? Myron Cope rolling in his grave if he was to see what the Steelers are doing right now.
And I'm Ben Bobick, Munhall native, holding it down in Chattanooga, Tennessee. I wonder if they're having open kickoff return tryouts this week at Steelers practice on the South Side.
And I'm Wayne Gandy, former offensive lineman for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm way down in Florida. So I'm from Haines City, Florida, the home of the Hornets. Hopefully we have enough defensive personnel to make a game of it against another young quarterback in New England.
Wave those terrible towels. It's the Steelers Squad. Everything Pittsburgh Steelers every week. Breaking down all the big hits and game-changing plays from the Steel City. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. From the steel curtain to the next generation, the Steelers Squad Show starts now.
Yes, it does. This is the Steelers Squad Show right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Tonight's episode is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. Mazda, move and be moved. Again, I'm your host, Tyler Feldman, and joining me on this Wednesday night, New England Patriots preview edition of the Steelers Squad Show, former Steelers offensive lineman Wayne Gandy, and the future mayor of Pittsburgh, Ben Bobick, right there in the middle. And you know what, guys? Before we kick things off with the latest injury updates, like we do every Wednesday, I do want to take a quick moment to remember Dale Lally sadly passing away today. The news reverberating across social media through the Pittsburgh sports scene. Longtime Steelers reporter, such a great guy, gone way too soon, a great writer, and seeing stories that were shared from former Steelers most recently, and just hearing the support that he gave to those players. It was special and just certainly sad to see someone so important to the Steelers and covering the Steelers and this great team and organization pass away so suddenly, in a way, for those who didn't know he had cancer, and for those who did, just a sad day for Steelers Nation.
Yeah, man. I grew up, at least for a good bit there, reading Dale's work, and it just seemed to do it with such class. And for a young person in the business like myself, and even you, Tyler, just growing up with it, it's definitely someone you look up to and respect in the business, and how they carried themselves and treated the job with such professionalism. And it seemed like a much better friend to a lot of folks on the beat. So definitely thinking of him and his family.
So yes, Dale Lally sadly passing away. Wayne, you didn't bump into him at all, did you, during your time, or read any of his work? Or I know you're down south in Georgia now, but certainly for all the media members that you've come across in your time in the NFL, there's that certain respect amongst the community when one passes. It kind of hits on everyone. So again, just a sad day for Steelers Nation, knowing that one of the big-time writers covering this team for a number of years is no longer with us physically, but his memory will always be a blessing. Going on from that, not an easy segue to the injuries plaguing this Steelers team. It's been a big storyline for these Steelers guys. Mike Tomlin saying earlier this week, Isaiah Loudermilk, he is out with a high ankle sprain. Alex Highsmith is out with a less significant ankle sprain. Patrick Queen has an oblique injury. Darius Slay has a shoulder injury. Both limited in practice leading up to Sunday. Deshaun Elliott, Joey Porter Jr., Derek Harmon, all improving according to Tomlin, but best described as questionable for their Sunday matchup against the Patriots. And then looking at the injury report from the Steelers today, Patrick Queen, he did practice. Joey Porter Jr. did not practice. Deshaun Elliott did not practice. Alex Highsmith did not practice. And Harmon was limited in practice here on Wednesday. So, Wayne, I'll start with you. The injury bug, no excuses, but the Steelers, it is somewhat of an excuse because you look at where they're hurting. It's defensively. They rank close to last in a lot of defensive categories right now, and that's not a good thing. And you look at who's banged up, there's kind of a reason why, right?
Yeah, when you look at this team, you really felt like if it was going to be any kind of specialness to it, it would have to come from the defensive side of the ball. And early on, even in game 2 last week against Seattle, we saw where Deshaun Elliott and Joey Porter Jr. out. And I think the three of us all felt like the secondary, with those injuries, nowhere close to what we thought they would bring to the field. So now you talk about with Highsmith and Loudermilk was that size, that big body that you felt that was in there to give Cam Hayward a little rest sometimes. You already had Harmon out. Your linebackers with Patrick Queen, that's your number one guy in the middle. We saw how effective he was against the run last week, playing downhill. But the one comfort I think we all feel, or I at least feel, was coming out of preseason, we did mark depth as something that would carry the Steelers, through a couple of games that they had. It was a hard 53-man roster cut. We felt like they had guys that not only they were putting on the practice squad, but they had, it was a guy behind them. It might not be as effective as the guy in front of them, but they gotten back to where they had built, especially on the defensive side of the ball, some depth. It came into play last week. So now you just got to hope that the Jack Sawyers and those guys, Nick Herbert, just step up and pick up from where they were last week, now knowing that they're going to get that time out on the field. But a lot of injuries in a lot of places, and it's just part of the NFL. I mean, and I think that is one of the special times or what special things that I felt like Pittsburgh always has had. You can't count the next man out. You can't just decide because Highsmith is gone that the next guy that fills in, those are the guys. Those were typically the guys that pushed the Steelers to be able to let some big name player go a lot of times. It was that rotation in a sense. It was, if you got too pricey, hey, we got this other guy we feel like can play somewhere close to you. So we're going to be counting on depth going into New England, especially defensively.
Nick Herbig getting his first career. Wayne, we okay? Holy cow. Wayne he speaks with such power that it just goes right out when he's done watching. Holy cow. Maybe it's bad juju with the Pirates hat because they missed the playoffs for another season. Power's not going to stay on for that kind of headwear, is it?
Y'all keep it going. Hold on.
We'll keep it going. Hey, Power's out. We keep the lights on here. I know this isn't a Motel 6. This is Steelers Squad show.
But Wayne wanted the blackout of PNC Park, so that's why where the Buccos head. We aren't getting Bucktober, so
we're not getting to Wayne's World until the third segment of this show. So maybe we'll get the lights on by then. If not, it'll be Wayne's World in the dark, and I'd be scared facing that. Okay, I'm just saying. Nick Herbig, first career interception against the Seahawks. And then you had Jack Sawyer. And Ben, I know you mentioned Jack Sawyer a ton. You loved what he brought to the table. But again, it's just these guys that are getting those opportunities. Is it enough for the Steelers team right now?
I think what's the biggest frustration about it is because we like Wayne had alluded to there just about one of the strengths being the depth, but I don't think they wanted to rely on the depth week 2, 3 this
season. We're talking. I'm sorry. Sorry.
Somewhere in the dark is what he said. But that's what I think it comes down to. It's just like they have the depth, but why would you don't want to rely on it week 2 and 3? You think the depth would come into play in those November, December games when some guys are banged up and you're making a playoff push. And I think it really affects the defense gelling a little bit, right? There's a lot of new guys in that secondary. You think about Juan Thornhill, Jalen Ramsey, Darius Slay, Joey Porter Jr. has obviously been here for a bit, and Deshaun Elliott as well. But, they're professionals, but, they got to get used to playing with one another, and you can only simulate so much in practice. And so those guys being out, I also think, Deshaun Elliott and Joey Porter Jr. being on the field opens up guys Jalen Ramsey, and they like, you know, I think he's had to take on a bigger role now because of these guys being out, as opposed to, you know, maybe unlocking what they foresee using him as with those guys on the field. But I think of a guy like Nick Herbig, though, like, because you mentioned him, I have the utmost faith in him. I love that cat. He's been proving himself since the moment he got drafted. I love how quick he is, and I like to see him rewarded this past weekend with his first interception. So I have no doubt that as long as he's coming in healthy, because I know that hamstring bothered him, I have no doubt that he could hold up his end of the bargaining over there. And I think, if anything, he may benefit from it, because just because he's a guy that I think would really benefit from playing across from a guy like TJ Watt. And like we mentioned, you know, Jack Sawyer is obviously a guy that is going to have to grow up quick here. And he's played a lot of football, at least when it comes to, he played a lot of football at Ohio State. So, but the professional rank's a little bit different. I think just the biggest frustration is rely on the depth just too earlier in the season they would have liked to.
We'll take Wayne off the stage right now. If he figures it out, we get the light back. We'll bring Wayne back out onto the stage. My big thing, though, Ben, is you can blame the injuries and these younger guys getting the opportunities, and that's all fun and games. Is Nick Herbig good enough, though? Is he good enough for where the Steelers need to be? You could do all that stuff, but this is now a young team. You look at the offensive line, 4 of the 5 guys have just 1 or 2 years of experience. This is now a Steelers team with a ton of draft picks and a situation that I hope doesn't turn south. I mean, we were talking about this being a 10-11 win team. And for me right now, I'm wondering, what's the problem? You've got injuries, but is it coaching? Are the schemes too old? Is Mike Tomlin and Terrell Austin and the rest of the Steelers coaching staff doing enough on a daily and weekly basis to put the players in the right position to actually confuse the opposition? I saw that video of the Seahawks just bouncing around on the sideline. I've never seen that at Heinz Field. You would have never seen that. Acrisure Stadium, I don't know. It's been a different Steelers team at Acrisure Stadium. Heinz Field, you would never see that. And so for me right now, Ben, is it coaching? Have we seen everything that we can see from Mike Tomlin and company? Because I think one of the big arguments to moving on from Coach T is, well, look at his coaching tree. Where's all these assistant coaches going? You look at the Lions, for example, look at how Dan Campbell, his tree has blossomed in a couple of seasons. But who are those Mike Tomlin guys? I know that's maybe some may look at that as, well, that's not all it's about. Well, at a certain point, I just see the same old Steelers. And at a certain point for me, you kind of have to look at the coaching, because no team is coming into Pittsburgh and no team is welcoming the Steelers all that scared anymore. That's at least from my vantage point.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned when it comes to the defense too. They like to say, like, you know, Terrell Austin's like, no. Coach T deserves, if not a lot, if not at all, of blame, because you know why? Because he's a defensive-minded coach, and you're nuts if you don't think he has his hand in the defensive play calling, like he has the entire time he has been here. It's absolutely his operation, obviously as a head coach, but he has his hand in the, you know, in that defense a lot more than people give, you know, but may say. At least when things go bad, they like to bring up Terrell Austin. It's like, nah, it's both of them, man, because you know I think the one telling aspect of it when you want to talk about the scheme wise, the touchdown that went to this past weekend on the who was it, Smith and Jigba, it was almost the same exact play that Garrett Wilson scored on in week 1. And it's leaving a guy out to dry up there. This time it was Jalen Ramsey. Week 1 it was Darius Slay, and it's so clearly they're watching film and say, well, they're not going to fix that. And then also I'm thinking about that middle of the field again, man. I mean, it was because it was both halves. It's like that first half, they're attacking the middle part of the field. Okay, it's quite clear how they want to attack the defense. Why don't we make some adjustments here? What can we do to combat that? And I was actually, and I caught ESPN a bit this morning too. Dan Orlovsky was talking about, and honestly, you don't even need him to talk about it. You can just watch it for yourself. It's quite clear what they're doing when it comes to effectively running the ball. They're just running away from TJ Watt. And so maybe, you know, I know they try to move him around a little bit, but maybe they have to be a little bit more creative in what they do. And I know they're creative in their own right. And their MO is creating those splash plays and whatnot, and sort of like a bend, don't break mentality. But man, there has to be something there. You have to be able to win games against, say, the Seahawks when seemingly all you need to do is, okay, let's just limit their running and limit their rushing attack, and just force Sam Darnold to make him uncomfortable. Because when they did that, they got a turnover out of it. They were able to get off the field. It's just some things need to be tinkered with on that defense, and like you mentioned, man, you can't just keep blaming the injuries, because these are professional football players. They're top 1%ers. There's a reason they got a job in the league.
And this team doesn't look talented enough either. You've got some good guys, but are the Steelers drafting well enough? Are they getting the right guys to wear black and gold? Because I think that's another conversation piece, Ben, is Omar Khan. It's just a different look Steelers. And certainly this team is in a position where playoffs are certainly still a possibility. Again, we're about to head into week 3, but at the same time, are they drafting the right players that fit the system? And then you dribble down there, and is the system old? Is it an old, antiquated system? And I think it's a major trickle-down effect. And so I still have a lot of question marks. We will get to the other side of the football, because all I've been hearing this week is Jaylen Warren. Well, sure, but he's not doing all that much all at the same time. So, yes, you need the running game to get going. And we'll talk about how Jaylen Warren and the Pittsburgh offense can do that. That's coming up next here on the Steelers Squad Show, right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. But first, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however I like to bet. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It makes every game more exciting, too, whether I'm watching my Steelers or just keeping tabs on NFL Red Zone in my fantasy lineup. It's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to my Sunday. So, are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Back here on the Locked On Podcast Network, Steelers Squad Show. Ben Bobick, I'm Tyler Feldman, and the lights are back on for Wayne Gandy.
There he is.
He is back.
I'm back.
Wayne, you're like a superhero. You speak and the lights just turn on. So powerful with your vocal cords that they just shut off. Wayne, great to have you back.
Glad to be back.
Wayne, we'll get to your world coming up after the next break. But Ben and I were talking about the defensive side of the ball. Let's move to the offensive side of the ball and really get to the crux of what's the issue with this Pittsburgh Steelers team. Everything I've heard this week, it's leaning on Jaylen Warren and the running game being established. Wayne, you've talked about it for the last 2 weeks now. I think that's a lot of pressure for Jaylen Warren, because Mike Tomlin even said this week that Warren is playing really well. He's been impressed with his game. At the same time, the running game really hasn't been there. So I feel like it's a juxtaposition. You have Jaylen Warren's playing well, but the running game hasn't been all that great. How do we fix this running game problem? How does Jaylen Warren, with the help of maybe a better offensive line, more push, how do they actually figure it out here in week 3 against the Patriots?
Well, we got to get a time machine. We got to go back to week 1 of preseason, and instead of throwing all those short passes, we got to run the football. To me, that's where this season started for this offensive line, this running game, this kind of a casual approach, as though it was something that was already there. And as a Steeler fan, we're all looking for the run game. It's very seldom that we've ever had a successful Steeler team that didn't have an effective run game. You don't have to lead the league in rushing, but at some point, especially the way that the defense is always counted on, the offensive line comes into play. And it was a very casual approach in the preseason. Now we're into week 3. When I watched the tape, or when I watched the game last week, I saw offensive line that was kind of skirting around blocks, the combo blocks up to the next level, guys getting off too fast. It's a timing thing, repetition. We talked about the switch. We talked about Batanu being in there on that right side for the first time. It is not as easy as you want it to be. And trust me, I want it to be in situations where it was easier. But it is an attitude. It is an approach to the game. And it's a hard grind. It's not an easy thing to get guys to commit to. It's just like stopping the run. It's hard to get defenders to hold at the point, to not cheat and want to shoot the gap and those kind of things like that. So as an offensive line, I'm not looking for us to jump into the top 10, but we got to be in that top 15. We got to be able to have, close to 100 yards as a team. I mean, 2 games and we were around 55, 65 yards, somewhere in there per game. That's not
50 to 70.
That's like one Derrick Henry run. That's a quarter for Saquon Barkley.
Yeah.
In this game, the big part you're going on the road once again, similar to the Jets. And to me, you have to establish the run. Mainly, you're trying to take some of the air out of the ball. You're trying to play the old school. Your defense is hurt. Complementary football is not just in the game. A lot of people talk about it, once the defense gets a turnover, special team does this, then the other part got to capitalize. No, some weeks you go into the game knowing you need more points because one side of the ball is hurt. Just like when the star quarterback gets hurt, the defense knows, at least for a week, hey, we got to go out here and do something. And that's where, to me, this week is, where the offensive line is intact. These are the 5 guys we feel like can get the job done. Warren, Gainwell, Caleb Johnson, all those components, all the tight ends are there. It's like everything that's supposed to be there for the run game is there. It's the one part of this whole Pittsburgh Steelers team that's intact. Now you got to be able to implement it, and that is the big key to trying to find victory for me come Sunday.
Wayne, you mentioned the Steelers need to take the air out of the ball with their run game. Thankfully for the Steelers, they know what it takes to take the air out of the ball up in New England. You know what I'm saying, Ben?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
That's common practice.
They're very familiar with that practice up in Foxboro. Hey, Ben, how does Jaylen Warren get over 100? Can we get Jaylen Warren to eclipse 100 yards here on Sunday?
I mean, they got to get him. Honestly, you know what? It's crazy to think, but they probably should give him the football more. Whether that's how. I think when you divvy up his snaps, I think he got 36 maybe snaps along those lines against the Seahawks, and Kenneth Gainwell wasn't too far behind him. And I get it. I'm all about Gainwell playing. But I just think Warren needs to be in there more. I mean, he needs to be the feature back. I mean, it just needs to be that. You saw it with the run and catch, the 65-yard or whatever it was that set us up first and goal from the 5. I just think that they do. He's a downhill runner when he gets going, and I honestly think he could help the offensive line because I think when you see a guy like that breaking some tackles, and he might be able to cover up some of their shortcomings in the sense where, hey, maybe he makes a guy miss and then he hits the hole for 3 or 4 yards. 3 or 4 yards is fine if you get going. I mean, because 2nd and 6 is not that bad, is right where you want to be, because then you could open up some things there where you could run the ball again on 2nd down, or at least you don't have to go and make a big time pass play on the 2nd down. You're able to get something, maybe set up a play action or set up a route where maybe you do get maybe a 10 to 15 yarder, but if not, you have the check down, and you still might be able to pick up the first down. It's stuff like that and avoiding those long down and go situations. And so it's just, I think he just needs to get the ball more. I really do. They've been playing around with it for years. Even when Najee Harris was here, when Warren would come in, it would be a spark to the offense. And it's man, he needs to get the ball more.
And that worked, Ben, though, because he had Najee Harris, who is an effective runner. And I feel like he wasn't as beloved in Pittsburgh as maybe he should have been at the time. Now, hindsight's 20/20, but having a running back like Harris and supplement on 3rd down with Warren, it worked. I just don't think the Steelers have that right now.
It did, but the one thing that Jalen Warren did a good job of, and we saw it on Sunday, was just getting him the ball out in space, getting him, even if it's thrown it to him. He's a good pass catching back, and just getting him in space and finding him in one-on-ones, and just trust that he could beat the guy in front of him and see what could happen. And we saw that. I mean, I keep pointing to one play, but we've seen it the last few years, though, in some of the things he's been able to do in the pass catching game as well. So I think an uptick a little bit more, but I also think maybe just keeping it simple. Maybe just running the ball straight at him. Like, hey, we're gonna just go north-south, big on big, run the ball at him. Because I think that's one of the issues with this offense, is being too cute at times when you could just keep it simple, man. You don't need to do a little toss play on a pitch. You don't need to do a guy pulling this. Just run right at him and see what we can get going.
Wayne, is the offensive line capable to run north-south like that? Here's my thing. You've got an offensive line where 4 of the 5 guys only have 1 or 2 years of experience. And Wayne, you talked earlier in this segment here, it takes a long time to build that communication to have an effective offensive line. How long should we expect a younger offensive line? What's the expectation? Because it doesn't seem like they're there yet. But by week 6, what's the timeline for a younger offensive line and a capable offensive line to figure it out in a way that allows the running game to really develop?
It takes a minute. It could take, based on the systems they came from, their attitude towards running the ball as a big part of what they want to do. It's a temperament thing. It's a hard. I'm gonna be sore. I'm always be putting myself in some kind of position where I might be hurt. It's just an attitude. And I think I'm pressing on it because if you don't do it, it doesn't just come. That's the thing. So if you're only going to run the ball 18 times, then when are we going to have that game where the Steelers ran the ball for 30 times, 32 times for 150 yards? When is it going to come? It's never going to come at 18 times a game. It's just not going to happen. And I think you have to go out, and it's an attitude. And that's why I say, I'm like Ben is saying, I'm not looking for any one of the backs to hit 100 yards, but I am looking for the team to get to 100 yards.
Yeah.
And mainly, that's what I look at. Where was the team without the quarterback yards? Because right now, you don't have that quarterback anyway. So you can't count Aaron Rodgers in on, any kind of idea of running the ball other than, he has to get out the pocket. But can I get 100 yards? 3 backs and an offensive line can't get 100 yards in a game? It's just hard. That's tough sledding. That's a 9 and 18. That's where you're right there. If you can't at least get a team rushing at, where you can hit 100, 150 yards a game as a team.
Well, speaking of sledding, it does feel like right now the Steelers team gives the appearance of being the island of misfit toys. Toys are still capable, but it's just a weird bunch. Do they actually mesh together? Because through 2 weeks, I just don't feel the mojo. Like, I'm talking about, Ben, when you and I were growing up watching Wayne Gandy and the Pittsburgh Steelers, there was a mojo there. There was like, okay, this Steelers team, this organization, there's direction. They have the right pieces in place. There's some energy, just some kinetic energy that you feel on the field. And I haven't felt that feeling with the Steelers team in quite some time. And I don't know if these pieces work. Are the right pieces put together on this team? Do we need to look at the higher levels of management within the Steelers organization and consider what players they're bringing in and why? It just doesn't seem like it's the perfect mesh right now.
Yeah, Island of Misfit Toys is a perfect reference, right? Because
no, I'm not. Let me just say, I'm not saying Aaron Rodgers is like a misfit,
right?
I'm just saying, like, in general speaking terms.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because it's a smorgasbord of great players, but do they all come together? To your point, and I just think it's one of those things where I feel like it takes a little bit of time. Now, I don't know if we have time because just for the fact that like the Steelers are trying to win this season right now. So it's past the point of, oh, well, maybe, it's not one of those situations where, oh, you know what, this team would be really good in a year or two. Like, no, this team needs to be really good Sunday at 1:00 against the Patriots because that's what they signed up for. Seemingly that's why they went out and got all these veterans and these Pro Bowl guys. But it's like anything. It just takes a little bit of time to come together and mesh. That goes for the defense, the back end with the secondary. It definitely goes with the offensive line, especially when you take into account how young they are with the 2 tackles and you think about Zach Frazier and Mason McCormick. I mean, they're only in their second year playing ball. So, I mean, that's going to take some time. It's Aaron Rodgers, obviously a veteran quarterback, but a whole new team. Got DK Metcalf, who's an elite receiver, but then you have a bunch of elite tight ends that are in there. It's just so much at once that I just think it's going to take time to come together. Now it's just a matter of if the Steelers, that the talent that they have assembled can steal them a game or two, right? Can those guys steal them a game in the sense of TJ Watt taking over a game and getting a strip sack late and we sneaking one out maybe on Sunday in New England, or I think about not to look ahead, but I think about the Dublin game. Those ones are weird when you go international. You don't know what's going to happen. The sleep schedules are messed up. Can Jalen Ramsey get an interception late and then Boswell steal another one? And then as we start to get deeper in the season, you see that offensive line, Joe. You see some guys come together. But I just think that's what it comes down to. There's so much new that it's going to take time to mesh, but I just don't know if they have the time because they seemingly built this team to win now.
Well, time for us to go to break. When we come back, Wayne Gandy, the NFL veteran of 15 years, will step into Wayne's world, a well-lit Wayne's world. The power is now back on. That'll be right here on the Steelers Squad Show on the Locked On Podcast Network. But first, tonight's episode is brought to you by Mazda's Moving the Game Forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points up on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep moving the game forward. This week's moment that moved the game forward was courtesy of Aaron Rodgers and Jaylen Warren. With about 6 minutes to go in the third quarter and the game tied at 14, Rodgers linked up with Warren for a 65-yard pass play. No, it did not lead to any points. It led to an Aaron Rodgers interception in the end zone. But you know what? It still certainly moved the game forward, at least for that one play. So when you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. All right, back here on the Locked On Steelers Squad Show. Wayne Gandy, Ben Bobick, Wednesday night. We're talking ball. We're talking problems in Pittsburgh with the Steelers team. I realize it's only into week 3 here. Steelers at the Patriots Sunday, 1 Eastern, Foxboro. It'll be on CBS. Let's step inside Wayne's world, though. Wayne, you already talked about the offensive line a little bit. My first question to you as we walk into your world, can you kind of dissect the communication across the line and how difficult that is to develop, and why an offensive line that has 4 of the 5 guys with just 1 or 2 years of NFL experience, why is that such a challenge, and how are the keys to getting that communication right? I'm just curious across the line how that communication goes and why that might be a reason why things aren't perfect yet.
Well, sometimes when you're out on the field as an O-line, it's one of the reasons why when I watch college football and they don't huddle up, and I'm sitting there thinking, man, you can't transfer any information to your right tackle or your right guard on something that needs to be done right now on this drive. A key word that you've heard the defense say. If you're running a game, how you're playing it. Little nuances that I won't get to tell you until I get to the sideline. Well, the jail becomes the understanding of each other's talent sets. The communication is just, you try to get the communications where it's just a look, cough, a Yale. It's one of those things. You're just, I look at you, you look at me. I already know what you want me to do. We don't have to, T-E-E-T, B-B, C. We just call. Or I say your name, Tyler. Or you just hear me say Ben. And we are, while the snap count's going on, I look over and it's an I thing. And it's just this idea of when I'm going to take more of the guy and when are you going to take more of the guy to go to the same place where you think he's going to play. And it's just one of those things. And I think the whole team would have just benefited from more time in the preseason. And because they were acting like even the pieces like DK Metcalf or like Ben was saying, you got your center Frazier and McCormick. This is just their second year. You got Broderick Jones moving to the left side, Juju Smith. You got pieces that needed to get out on the field. And as much as I love practice, it's just practice. Your mind, you can't trick your mind to believing it's real. It only is real when it is. So the communication thing is just being able, it's not just a verbiage thing. It's also an understanding of, how to get off a block, how much to take to be able to be secure, telling I'm just going to go through. Since the D tackle seems like he's going to play with this leverage, I'm just going to pull around you. Or I'm going to swim him and just go get the linebacker. We're going to forget what coach was talking about. That was theory. Some stuff is just theory, what he wrote on the board. Right now, I can't seem to move this guy, so this is what we're going to do. And that is part of the gamesmanship. And some of that takes experience and time to figure it out. It's not just what we draw up on the board. Sometimes you have to go to plan B because and this week, when I looked at the roster of the Patriots, and I haven't watched a game of theirs to be able to tell you what the talent level, all I can go by, I didn't see any big name like they faced in these first two games in that front line. I didn't see a Leonard Williams or those kind of guys up there. They might be, but I haven't watched them enough to tell you. So I'm looking for a step forward with this offensive line and their play come Sunday.
It's a fascinating conversation because unless you're on that line or have ever played organized football and have been on the line, Wayne, it's interesting to me because I had one follow-up. So how often in your career did you just didn't have any communication and would just have to block?
Oh, most of you're in your guard. The first person that you want to hang out with. When I got to Pittsburgh, the first meal I went to have was with Alan Faneca. Me and his wife and him and Julie. She was just trying to learn how to cook. But it wasn't about the food. It was about the camaraderie. And me and Alan just was for those 4 years. It was just such a pleasure to play with him because that's how we even, my shoulder got hurt or his ankle got hurt. I knew, hey, okay, you're going to have to compensate on this because he's not feeling good in this way. So, but it's just one of those joys to be able to get in there with a guy and be able to talk with your eyes, cough, because, there's just so many times that you can just keep calling out what you're going to do. That the defense, is not listening. I mean, I don't know why people act like you can't do that now. When I see, they're stealing signs. Yeah, that's what I'm supposed to do. How many times y'all going to keep talking about Red Rover? Okay, Red Rover. That's third time you've said Red Rover. This is what you're doing. So it's just one of those things. But yeah, it's much needed, and I wouldn't stress it. That's why I said with the move, even with someone like Samalu over there at left guard, him and Jones, they need that time to work together. The tight ends, everybody that you're going to sit there, especially with how practice has been shortened, people just take things for granted. College, high school, you don't just get that experience. It is a pleasure to be able to play with somebody and build a nonverbal communication of how to get something done.
Fascinating. The Steelers really don't have that much time to figure it out. Ben, what do you think? How many more weeks can we sit through this conversation of, well, they didn't do it in the preseason. They didn't play their starters. Now they're kind of working through it now. They've got to win now. This team is not built to, this is not the Kansas City Chiefs 8 years ago. This is the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2025. They've got to win now. Can they with where they're at?
Yeah, I think, you know what, and Wayne talked about it a little bit on Sunday, and he's been talking a bit about it today too. I do think, there needs to be an attitude that comes into it as well. I mean, these guys have been getting beat. Granted, I do think the offensive line was a touch better this past Sunday. Not good, but a touch better at least. There were some decent runs and whatnot. They're just too inconsistent with it. I think they just got to take it to him, man. I think it's an attitude thing. Wayne's been talking a little bit about it, man. It just comes down to, listen, I'm just getting tired of getting my butt kicked, and I'm just going to go and hit that guy and plow him out of here, whether that's in the run block game or the pass protection game. I just think it comes down to just having that effort, knowing that, hey, listen, I know I haven't been at my best, and if we as a collective unit can get better, this team could really start to cook maybe a little bit more. And so I think it just needs to be an attitude and just just get in that mindset and just go out there and bully some guys, because that's Pittsburgh Steelers football. You touched a little bit on Pittsburgh Steelers football growing up. I mean, that's what it was. It was smash mouth. It was getting in people's grills. It was attitude, and it was guys that, like you mentioned, did not want to play the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I think they need to get back to that a little bit. They need to go out there and hit somebody in the mouth, especially in a game on Sunday in their building, in their facility up there in Foxboro. Go and take it to them. Let's run the ball a little bit effectively, but not even just that. But let's pass, protect, and play action. I think that was one thing that we were pretty good at in week one against the Jets. I mean, you think about how many great throws came off play action. Weren't too great about it against the Seahawks, and that's credit to Seattle and the way they were playing defense, obviously. But I think that comes into play as well. I think that offensively they could scheme it up a little bit better. Where, hey, maybe I know people have been talking a lot about Aaron Rodgers and, oh, he's not as mobile as he once was. He looked pretty nimble on Sunday. He's able to move around and feel the pocket a little bit. Why not get this guy on the run a little bit? Maybe get him out running to the right, kind of supplement that offensive line. Get him out running right a little bit, throwing on the run, or doing some of those things to maybe mask some of those issues, just to be able to get a clean pocket and throw. I mean, because he could at least do that. I mean, he's not like Big Ben in his last year, where he's kind of skating around, moving around, almost like just with his head on a swivel, can't feel it out. I mean, he still can move it a little bit, at least to get out on the run a little bit. But I just think they just need to go and punch him in the mouth on Sunday. I think it's an attitude thing that plays a lot into it. And I think when they start, gelling like that, I think it leads to better things.
Do we want Aaron Rodgers running more with the football? I'm not sure, and I think we're going to talk about that next, right here on the Steelers Squad Show on the Locked On Podcast Network. NFL season is back, and honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium surrounded by the fans cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle between queues, login screens, and prices jumping at checkout. It's frustrating. That's why I use Gametime, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. Gametime is fast, easy, and backed by the Gametime guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is the price you pay. I pulled up Gametime, and in just a couple taps, I saw amazing deals. I'm talking about my favorite NFL game, the Steelers, as low as $100. And the app makes it super simple. I can see the exact view from my seat before buying, and I also love their zone deals where you pick the section, Gametime picks the seats, and you save big. Honestly, it's faster, cheaper, and less stressful than any other way I've ever bought tickets. So download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Gametime today. Final segment here on this Wednesday night edition of the Steelers Squad Show on the Locked On Podcast Network. He's Ben Bobick. He's Wayne Gandy. I'm Tyler Feldman. And let's pick things up right where we left off with the idea of Aaron Rodgers moving around with the football a little bit more. On one hand, yes, he probably should and needs to make this Steelers offense a little less predictable. But at the same time, after seeing what happened against the Seahawks, he got sacked 3 times. The one, you could see him on the bench. There was a shot on the broadcast where he did not look like he was feeling all that well. Then there was that other time he threw the ball, knocked his throwing hand off a helmet or a shoulder, and there was a close-up of him moving his hand around. He's 41 years old. I mean, how much moving can Aaron Rodgers afford to avoid getting injured? Wayne, I'm a little bit hesitant to say move with the football a little bit more.
Well, I think that if you can establish the run, you can move the pocket a little more. You can get the defense to sucker in, use that. It seems like Aaron Rodgers does have, and he's always been what I consider a mobile quarterback. You know, you have a running quarterback, a mobile quarterback, and then you just have a pocket passer. Like Eli Manning or Peyton Manning. They were just pocket passers. I've always liked Aaron Rodgers. I've always liked that guy that if he saw 4 yards in front of him, he could go get it. You know, he knew when to use that part of his game. And I can see definitely, especially down on the goal line, move the pocket a little bit, get away from the pressure until you feel like this line really can hold up front. But it's definitely something, an aspect I wouldn't rely on. It's not like I would have a package, but he has shown a little more life in his legs that, little rollouts. I'm not talking about keepers and all those kind of things. I'm just talking about roll bootlegs, something easy just to get the ball out of his hand where he has somewhere to go with the ball. Because he's smart enough to know when to throw it away. It's not like he's going to sit there and hold the ball. He's going to just throw it into the stands and keep it moving.
And I certainly wouldn't mind Aaron doing that and building confidence and trust in the areas in which he has suffered injuries. I don't know. I just, all it takes is that confidence gets right where it needs to be, and it's one play and then boom, down. I'm hesitant because unfortunately the Steelers are in a position where they need Aaron Rodgers to stay healthy, and I don't know if he can do it for the remainder of the season. That is a huge concern of mine. Ben?
Yeah, I mean, and Wayne touched on it. It doesn't need to be, hey, let's run the read option with Aaron Rodgers, man. Let's have him back there, dishing it out. But just get him out on the move a little bit, like those little bootlegs, and just moving everybody right. And then you know what because what that opens up, at least seemingly, is you find guys moving that way, and you get the ball to them not even in space, but you get the ball to them on the run. And let them get the yak, let them get the yards after catch. Because if you're getting out there and finding guys out there that are moving along with you away from the defender, you get them to the ball, get them in space, and let them go make a play. But obviously, it needs to be done tastefully. And I know we mentioned it, or at least I did, talking all about, hey, I didn't want to get too cute. And now here I am talking about running Aaron Rodgers out on bootlegs and whatnot. But I just think it's pulling those strings at the right time. Hey, maybe this side of the line isn't doing, and obviously, like Wayne said, it all comes on, off play action and setting up the run. I mean, that's really what it's going to come down to. And that's just what this offense needs to do. And it doesn't need to be over the top, run it down your throat type of mentality. They just need to do it well enough. I mean, it doesn't need to be running the ball all the time. It just needs to be well enough to where it sets up those plays where you could pull that string and it's effective because it works. And it's not just doing it to do it, if you will.
JJ saying Arthur Smith is not good and needs to be replaced by someone more competent. Boy, we're 2 weeks into the season, y'all. I mean, we've got to slow the roll. I mean, let things develop. I know I've had my frustrations, but I've seen enough, at least from this offense, where I'm hopeful things can start to click. My bigger concern would be the defense. Now, that being said, a healthy Aaron Rodgers is important. Let's look at this game between the Patriots and the Steelers Sunday. Again, 1 Eastern on CBS in Foxboro. Steelers 1-1. Patriots also 1-1. They lost to the Raiders in week 1. They beat the Dolphins last week. So 2 teams with a lot to prove. Yeah, you look at the Patriots roster, you don't see a lot of like who he play for, like Charles Barkley on Inside the NBA. It's like who he play for. I didn't know he was on the Patriots. Steelers have a lot more stars, but again, banged up. Nothing has really been that impressive with Pittsburgh so far. Wayne, how do you see this one playing out in Foxboro on a Sunday afternoon?
I see it as a tough physical game. I look for a Mike Vrabel team. When you talk about him, the one thing you felt like he was able to get his team to buy into was kind of playing a little bully ball. We're gonna, the old Pittsburgh. Well, he was from that Pittsburgh Patriot way, where it was about falling and mixing it up. Don't worry about next Sunday. Finding those kind of guys. I think when you watch the Patriot team with Drake May, similar. He's completing about 70% of his passes. He doesn't throw, throwing about 28, 30 passes a game. They're going to try to establish the run. They play that base 3-4 defense as well. So you're going to look at a team that is feeling good. They were able to beat the Dolphins, and put some points on the board, something they were not able to do in week 1. So it's one of those things, and that's why I'm pressing to when I say run the ball, kind of like you're saying, to preserve Aaron Rodgers, to keep the offense balanced, that it's not always on him to have to improvise or make plays. You're able to establish the run. That is the key component. And the second is because you have so many defensive injuries. And that's why when I mentioned complementary football, it's the offense week. The injuries on the defense. And next week it could be the defensive guys. You might be getting Porter back and Highsmith back or some of those guys. And then it's the defense's week to carry the team into a game. And that's why I say, to me, the one part of the Steelers that seems to have all the pieces that can, impact the game is the running game, from the backs to the tight ends to the offensive line, and trying to establish that. So you can attack the middle of the field. You can get the ball down the field to DK Metcalf and find Calvin Austin. We need receiver number 2 to show up this week as well.
And maybe Dwayne Frank saying Darnell Washington needs to be utilized a heck of a lot more, especially on the goal line. I mean, the man is 6'8". Throw the ball up. He played basketball in college. It's like getting a rebound. Ben, can we see more of the tight end room, that talented tight end room, against the Patriots?
Yeah, I would like to see Jonnu Smith have a game. That Coach T's been very, very adamant about using him, in terms of at least being excited about using him. Well, you know what you're getting out of Pat Freiermuth. I mean, he's reliable, and I think he's been rather solid, at least in the pass game. The last 2 weeks. I mean, a couple big third down catches, a guy that you could kind of gets in the middle underneath blanket there. And then obviously Darnell with catching the ball on the 2-point conversion. I mean, it was almost like a cheat code, especially with the guy lined up a little bit off the ball on him. But I certainly think so. And I think Jonnu Smith too, more than just the screen game, because I feel like that's really all we've seen him in, is them throwing it out wide to him. And then the guy misses a block and then he only gets 2 or 3 yards. It's like, why don't we try to get him the ball down the field or in space and stuff like that? Maybe try to utilize him more, because he's a heck of a talent. And I think he's very athletic, and getting the ball to him in different ways other than just throwing a screen pass to him could be beneficial, because I know they were excited about using him in the offense. And then also, it keeps the defense a little bit honest too, knowing that you have to do that. But I think Freiermuth has been solid, and I think he'll only continue to get better in establishing that rapport with Rodgers. He's a guy you know what you're going to get out of him. And I think everyone's so excited to pull that string on Darnell Washington. We got a taste of it in the 2-point conversion, but I think a little bit. I think honestly they probably need him more helping out on the line in terms of blocking, which is what he's a little bit better at, especially because he looks like a lineman in his own right. But I think more than just the screen game for Jonnu Smith could maybe open up that tight end room a little bit, certainly for him.
Steelers right now favored by 1.5 on the road. Over under is 44.5. Do the Steelers win this game, guys? I don't really care about the over under. Do they win this football game?
It's going to be a tough game with the defensive issues. When you talk about Patrick Queen, probably, he's questionable. Knowing his attitude, he's going to get out there and play, but he's banged up. The size of Milk missing. Highsmith able to bring that consistent pressure. The one thing about I've always felt like the backup is the backup because of consistency. So this week now that you're the starter, when the pressure is on you, can we get those guys that's having to step in to get up, and play the Sawyers, as I said, Herbig. And will we get to see a little more Jabril Peppers? This is his former team. He's an impactful player. Has he had enough time to get out there and be able to see what he can bring to the field from that safety position?
That's a good point, Wayne. Do you have a prediction?
I'm going to go 24-20 Steelers.
Okay. Anderson wig. Wayne, will you sign my number 72 jersey?
The wig.
The wig. Wants the jersey signed, and I love the photos. Actually, it looks like a wig. Hey, that's up to you to work out with Wayne. I'll let you guys figure that out after the show's over. Ben, Jabril Peppers, yeah, I'd like to see more of him. Do the Steelers win this football game?
This is going to sound extremely dramatic, and I understand it before I even say it, but it almost feels like a must-win. If there's a must-win game in September, it feels like
it's embarrassing.
One.
It's just embarrassing to have to say that.
Because you have to stack this early season. You have to stack these W's before you get deep into division play and you start playing teams like the Lions and the Bills. I mean, you're playing the New England Patriots. This isn't the Tom Brady, Bill Belichick era Patriots, but for a lot of us Steelers fans, it's not too far removed. So this one almost feels a little personal, at least from a fan perspective. But it does, because you have to stack these wins, get to 2-1. I think it's going to be an ugly game, but I think they clean up those little mistakes. And what I mean by that, you're not going to see Calvin Austin doing what he did this past Sunday, stealing a potential touchdown away from Freiermuth. You're not going to see Caleb Johnson making that mistake again, because you may not see him returning kicks.
That's what I was going to say. I don't think you're going to see him back there.
Yeah, which is fine by me, and I think a lot of people would agree. But I just think it's going to be one of those ugly games. They have to get pressure on Drake May, stop the run, get pressure on Drake May, make that dude uncomfortable, and let Aaron Rodgers and the offense find a little rhythm. I do think they win it out. It's going to be ugly, but I could see it being a 17-13 win for the Steelers.
My heart says Steelers. My brain is leaning heavily for the Patriots. Steelers 23, New England 12. I'd like to see the defense come out, even though they're banged up, and actually play some hard-mouth football and really do the job that they're expected to do, because they should feel not just the pressure, but the opportunity to actually shut us up and do the job that they're expected to do. I do not want to see a Pittsburgh Steelers defense go on the road against a New England Patriots team where I can't even riddle off half the players, because who are they? This is no disrespect to New England, but that's their team right now. If I'm watching this game Sunday and the Patriots are doing the same thing we saw the Seahawks and the Jets do, well, then we have a major problem, and this show is going to be extraordinarily difficult to host for the rest of the season. And I don't think I'm overreacting there. I think that's just the reality of the Steelers situation, because that's a trickle down. I don't want a loss to this New England Patriots team at all. Guys, any final thoughts?
You have to go out and you have to beat the teams you should beat.
Bingo.
Regardless of your situation. This is a team just like the Jets and really just like the Seahawks that you should beat. If we're talking about some of the elite teams, we understand, but these are the winnable games, and you got to go through your schedule and make sure you're walking, because nobody cares come January. It doesn't matter if 8 of your 11 victories were teams you were supposed to beat, and that's what was supposed to happen. So that's why I'm agreeing with Ben, where you feel like kind of like a must win, just based on these are games that if you were going to go to the playoffs, you need to beat these teams.
Absolutely. And you know what? I just want to see them just punch him in the mouth, man. Let's win the trench battle this Sunday. Let's see some effort down there. Let's see him stop the run. Let's see him get a little nasty. Let's get a touch of that old school Steeler football. And we know it's not going to be the full thing because that just, it's just not what this team is about. But let's just take it to them. Let's win that trenches battle. And I think, a W may follow.
Either way, I think these Steelers are going to give us something to talk about on Sunday. 1 Eastern, Foxboro, CBS. It's the Steelers and the Patriots. A reminder, you can always listen to the audio of tonight's preview show on the Locked On Steelers podcast channel, wherever and however you podcast. Chris Carter, also injured on our injured list. He not able to make the show tonight. He's a busy man. Again, you can catch him Monday through Friday on the Locked On Steelers daily podcast. Be sure to check out his show as always. And Steelers Nation, do us a favor. Like, subscribe, do the thing to help us out. That'll do it, though, for this Week 3 preview edition of the Locked On Steelers Squad Show. For Wayne Gandy and Ben Bobick, I'm Tyler Feldman saying good night, and here we go. We'll see you right after the game on Sunday.